Amazing Waitress explores hidden talent in front of Millionaire. Discover the shocking aftermath. Jessica hurried through the bustling diner, plates stacked high in her hands while her mind raced with thoughts of bills and groceries. The sweet scent of pancakes and brewing coffee filled the air, but beneath the cheerful clinking of silverware and bubbling laughter, a storm brewed within her. She was the sole provider for her young daughter, Sarah. Yet each shift reminded her of the dreams she had shelved away, the ones her father, once a famous jazz musician, had also abandoned too soon. His melodies never left her, but neither did the haunting void of unfulfilled potential. "Order up," she called, forcing a smile as she delivered food to a table of regulars. Yet, as she glided past the booths, her heart whispered of longing. Each note from the jukebox felt like an echo of her lost aspirations. It was one relentless shift after another, each one squeezing her spirit tighter. Today, however, felt different. A newcomer had just walked in, Mr. Thompson, a polished businessman in an expensive suit. Perhaps it was the way he sat, looking out of place, or the way his eyes seemed to linger on her hand as she poured his coffee. Suddenly, a familiar tune floated from the jukebox, one her father used to play. At that moment, as if drawn by an unseen force, she opened her mouth. Notes tumbled out like starlight, filling the diner with a rich melody that captivated even the oldest voices in the room. Laughter paused, and all eyes turned towards her, including Mr. Thompson's, who appeared utterly entranced. Just as the song finished, applause erupted. It was overwhelming and yet liberating. But soon the weight settled back upon her, a burden of indecision as Mr. Thompson approached, the prospect of performing at an elite gala, an opportunity that could change everything, hung in the air like a promise she'd never dared to make. "Your voice, it's extraordinary," he said, his tone earnest. "You shouldn't remain hidden in a place like this." The spark of hope flickered bright against her fears. Would she dare to step into the spotlight and face the long-ingrained fear of inadequacy? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. At home, Jessica's heart sank further. Sarah was struggling in school, her grades slipping as the pressures of living in Jessica's shadow swallowed her pride. The heavy hand of familial duty gripped her tighter with each passing day. The prospect of letting her daughter down intermingled with the desire to finally pursue her dream. She felt like a juggler, the weight of obligations pushing her towards breaking. Then, just as the decision loomed, an unexpected call shattered her fragile calm. Her estranged brother had arrived, troubled and weary, and brought with him the shadows of a family crisis that gnawed at every tether of her resolve. Old grievances resurfaced in angry flashes, revealing an all-consuming weight she had tried to ignore for too long. As she stood in front of the mirror, rehearsing silently, she felt a pull from the past, the unbelievable faith her father had had in music, in dreams. There she stood, rife with dilemma, as an urgent text from her brother punctured the moment, spilling forth a family secret that twisted her understanding of loyalty into a question left unasked. Standing at the cusp of opportunity and responsibility, clenching her phone as if it were the last bastion of her dreams, Jessica realized the crossroads she faced would challenge more than just her desires. The echoes of her father's legacy called to her, leaving her teetering on the edge of a decision that could rewrite her family's story forever. Would she grasp at the stardom she yearned for, or would familial loyalty pull her back into the shadows? The following day dawned with an electric sense of urgency, mingling with the chaos of everyday life. Jessica shuffled through the morning routine, her mind oscillating between the previous night's unexpected applause and the crippling doubts that once again encircled her heart. Sarah's soft voice broke through her reverie, pulling her back into the reality of motherhood. "Mum, can you help me with math today?" Sarah's eyes sparkled with a mix of eagerness and hesitation, the weight of her struggles evident in the slight furrow of her brow. Jessica recognized the vulnerability in her daughter's request, a mirror reflecting her own uncertainties. "Of course, sweetheart," Jessica replied, forcing a brightness into her tone. But her commitment felt more like a weight, each obligation pulling her further from the music that danced in the corners of her soul. As she laid out Sarah's books, a gnawing question formed. Could she truly juggle the demands of family with the flickering flame of her aspirations? After school, Sarah slumped at the kitchen table, the homework she had once enjoyed seeming like a daunting mountain to climb. Admonishments of pressure and comparison spilled through Jessica's mind, prompting her to consider a shift. As she helped her daughter grapple with math, would she also allow room for her own dreams? Later that evening, Mr. Thompson's business card lay on the counter like a beacon, daring her to pick it up. It felt surreal, a slice of her father's legacy haunting her thoughts, whispering encouragement. Yet the childhood sounds of her father playing jazz loomed. They were both a comfort and a curse. The melody swirled through her memories, a reminder that each note he played had been an act of defiance against settled normalcy, a recipe she had yet to taste. While Sarah practiced her spelling in the next room, Jessica finally took a deep breath, her fingers trembling as she lifted the card. She thought of the gala, a chance not just for herself, but to show Sarah that dreams could flourish, unencumbered by the weight of doubt. Would she muster the courage to leave the confines of the diner and recognize her own worth? Just then, another message flashed on her phone, a lively group text from her brother, lingering between humor and a plea for reconciliation. The emotional turmoil bubbled anew. Could she extend grace toward him when her ambitions felt at stake? The struggle between family loyalty and pursuing her dreams churned within her, heightening the tension that bound her. As night settled in, Jessica bathed in the soft glow of her living room, a stark contrast to the chaos spiraling in her mind. The notes of a song floated through her thoughts, an impossible resolve building. Maybe she could reclaim her voice not only for herself, but as a legacy for Sarah. Could the act of stepping onto that stage be the catalyst that would propel her family towards healing? A decision began to crystallize, unsettling yet thrilling, as the thought simmered. The time had come to face both her dreams and the shadows that held them hostage. With a quick glance at Sarah, who giggled with delight over a math problem, Jessica resolved to break free from the cycle of self-doubt and present a different narrative for her daughter. The next step needed to be taken, but uncertainty loomed like a dark cloud. As the calming silence enveloped her, a sharp realization struck. This might not just be a path toward personal fulfillment, but a confrontation with the very fabric of her identity. Would she break the chains of the past, confronting her brother, and commit to the possibility of stardom? Heart racing, she stared at Mr. Thompson's card once more. The time had come to make a choice, and she had to decide. Would she step into the spotlight, or would she remain shackled by the weight of familial obligations? As the shadows danced across the walls, she felt the tug of two worlds ready to collide. Which one would claim her first? The sun filtered through the kitchen window, illuminating the dust motes swirling in the stillness. Jessica sat at the table, fingers drumming apprehensively against the smooth surface. The weight of Mr. Thompson's card pressed heavily in her pocket, a tangible reminder of opportunity and risk colliding in her psyche. Today, she decided, would be different. Unlike the previous evenings, where uncertainty reigned, she would embrace the unsettling disarray within her. Despite her burgeoning aspirations, the urge to fill her motherly role tugged at her heartstrings. With a deep inhale, she steeled herself for what lay ahead. "Sarah," she called, her voice steady despite the storm of emotion swirling beneath the surface. "Let's do some math together, and then I want to talk to you about something exciting." The response was immediate. Her daughter's curiosity piqued as she shuffled into the room. Jessica laid out the math problems and watched as Sarah's brows furrowed in concentration. In that moment, Sarah represented every published equation of dreams, each problem an obstacle awaiting a solution. Yet Jessica recognized a reflection of herself in her daughter's struggles with self-doubt. "Mom, what if I never get it?" Sarah asked hesitantly, her small hands crumpling the paper. That question pierced through Jessica with staggering clarity. "What if I never get it?" she echoed internally, her own insecurities rising to the surface. She realized that just as she needed to support Sarah through her struggles, she too required the same nurturing. "Sweetheart," Jessica began, her voice calm but infused with strength. "What if you look at it this way? Every mistake is just a step closer to getting it right. And if you try your best, that's already a huge victory." That little assertion, the belief that effort mattered more than the outcome, sparked something in Jessica. As Sarah nodded, engaging more confidently with her math problems, Jessica found herself contemplating her approach toward her own ambitions. Perhaps she had been measuring her worth with an unrealistic yardstick, sidelining the importance of courage and growth. Later, as the table cleared and the evening shadows stretched, Jessica wrapped her fingers around the card once more. The swell of unease tugged at her heart, but a different notion began to bloom. What if this chance wasn't about her unfolding talent, but about finding her voice despite the chaos? She had been entrenched in the idea that she had to be perfect. Remaining a dedicated mother and exemplary waitress didn't preclude her from exploring the stage. They could coexist. Jessica visualized stepping onto that stage, her nerves charged with a blend of fear and excitement, not unlike Sarah grappling with her math. The transformative moment began to fracture the glassy walls of her trepidation. Before she could lose her resolve, she reached for her phone, her heart racing faster than the thoughts whirling through her mind. Would reaching out to Mr. Thompson mean relinquishing control? Or was it an act of bravery, a decisive step toward her own reclamation, her own story? A clear message crystallized as she typed, "Mr. Thompson, I've been thinking about the gala. Can we discuss the possibility of me performing?" Each word felt like an electric jolt, a verdict of sorts against the inertia that had defined her existence. Just as she hit send, her phone buzzed again, her brother's name appearing on the screen with an apology. An unexpected second hook in the tumultuous journey she hadn't yet fully charted. In that moment, Jessica recognized that every decision could branch into unknown territories. Her journey was evolving, but with personal growth came the arduous path of confrontation. If she could extend grace towards her brother in pursuit of her dreams, perhaps it meant she could extend it to herself as well. With a fresh sense of purpose surging through her, Jessica stood at the crossroads, hearts resolved, yet tethered by unresolved feelings. Was it time to reconcile, not only with herself, but also with the fractured relationships in her life? The fallout of her actions was yet to be revealed, forming a blend of anticipation and fear as she plunged deeper into the fray. How her relationships would shift and her identity reshape remained an open question, swirling in the shadows of the impending stage lights. An unsettling thought loomed over her. Was her journey toward reconciliation with her brother intertwined with her burgeoning performance dream, a path that could either fortify her spirit or lead to unexpected fractures? Uncertainty loomed, waiting to unveil its secrets. Jessica hovered on the precipice of something new. The buzz from her phone lingered like static in the air, a reminder of the tangled web of relationships she had to navigate. Her thoughts raced. Her brother. The performance. Did she really want to see him? Did he even want to see her? Each question left her feeling more unmoored than the last. Resolutely, she turned her focus back to the weight of the card in her pocket. She needed this. True, unfiltered self-expression. Yet the idea conjured images of her brother's disappointment, their tumultuous past flashing through her mind like scenes from a worn movie reel. She couldn't ignore the abruptness of their last encounter, nor could she pretend his words hadn't stung. Could she balance the ambition now glowing within her and the family bonds tethering her to the familiar? As evening deepened, Jessica sank into the plush fabric of the couch, her fingers tracing the contours of her phone. The idea of reaching out to her brother loomed large. Perhaps it could be the very step toward healing she had skirted around for too long. But how would she breach the chasm that had yawned wide between them? Would he see her decision to perform as a betrayal or a breakthrough? In her mind, a plan began to coalesce. Messy but practical, she could invite him to join her for coffee, to talk about how their lives had intertwined in joyous and sorrowful ways. She would open the door to understanding, weaving her art into the fabric of their shared history. Each step forward felt weighted, yet important. Leaving the past behind wouldn't erase her childhood. Instead, it would transform it into something that could coexist with her present aspirations. There was a resonating truth forming in her consciousness. She was fighting an internal battle, one that held the keys to both artistic exploration and familial acceptance. Jessica had convinced herself that seeking her own path meant detaching from familial ties. But now she recognized her dreams could serve as a bridge. The thought of stepping back onto that stage without reconciling with her brother seemed progressively untenable. Wasn't it possible that singing, expressing her innermost thoughts, might resonate with him as well? Perhaps he'd even grasp the passion she had for storytelling through music. With a quick intake of breath, resolve blossomed inside her. She would text her brother first. As the thoughts solidified, the familiar rhythmic tapping of her fingers began once more. "Hey, I'd love to grab coffee and talk. It's been too long." Simple and direct. Her heart thudded. Would he respond with equal openness? Keeping her eyes fixed on the screen, Jessica felt the surge of adrenaline from her previous decision mingle with anticipation. The decision not only signaled a willingness to confront her fears, but also illuminated her latent capability to cultivate meaningful connections, reconciling conflicting desires within her. After sending the message, she didn't allow herself to dwell on uncertainty. Instead, she redirected her focus to the possibility of performance, a visceral part of her identity waiting to burst forth. She grabbed a notebook and began jotting down lyrics and ideas, the ink transforming her fears into a tangible narrative. Every word solidified her resolve, while the self-doubt wove tighter into the fabric of her existence. But as the neat rows of sentences came alive, a sudden ping from her phone startled her. Her brother's name glowed on the screen, and a wave of anxiety washed over her. Her fingers hesitated for a moment, hovering over the screen, before she gathered enough courage to open the message. What awaited her could redefine everything. "Are you free tomorrow? Let's talk." Now every nerve in her body ignited. Tomorrow could swing the pendulum, either toward valuable reconciliation or deeper wounds. But one thing was certain. Her old narrative was crumbling for a brand new chapter yet to be written. Jessica rose, her heart racing. It was time to weave her voice into the fabric of her family ties. The stage awaited, but first came a dialogue laden with uncertainty and the promise of revelation. What would their conversation unveil? Would it spell freedom or entrapment? The morning sun poured through the bedroom window, casting a warm glow that seemed incongruous with the tumult churning inside Jessica. She paced the small space, every step fueled by a mixture of excitement and dread. The promise of a conversation with her brother weighed heavily on her, a palpable tension dancing in her chest. Would they be able to navigate their fractured relationship and find common ground again? The smell of brewing coffee wafted in from the kitchen, beckoning her to pause for a moment. Jessica poured herself a cup, the steam curling up like wispy promises of hope. She took a deep breath, allowing the warm mug to steady her trembling hands. Closing her eyes, she replayed her brother's message in her mind, the simplicity piercing through layers of complication. "Let's talk." The words, so straightforward, ignited a spiraling urgency. In the shower, the water cascading over her felt cleansing, washing away the remnants of anxiety. She visualized their conversation as a duet, her art and his voice melding into a harmony capable of bridging their differences. The thought of sharing her songwriting with him seemed like an offering, one that might open a door to understanding the depths she had previously kept hidden. When the hour approached, Jessica dressed with purpose. She selected a blend of vibrant colors, each article of clothing a declaration of her intent to embrace her identity without apology. She wanted him to see her, the artist, the dreamer, not the sibling stuck in the childhood shadows of their past. Arriving at their meeting spot, a quaint cafe nestled on a bustling street, her heart hammered in her chest. She spotted her brother seated at a table, his figure silhouetted against the backdrop of the morning light filtering through the window. A pang of nostalgia struck her. Beside him, a fleeting image of their childhood unfolded. Days spent laughing, sharing dreams and teasing each other. "Hey!" she greeted, sliding into the chair facing him. Their eyes locked, and an awkward silence lingered between them. "Hey," he replied, voice low and guarded. They exchanged pleasantries as their coffees were served, but Jessica could feel the tension thickening the air. Moments passed, each one loaded with unarticulated thoughts. Sweeping aside her nerves, she dove in. "I've been thinking about us, you know," she began, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. "About where we left things." Her brother shifted in his seat, expression inscrutable. "You mean before or after you left?" A knife edge of defensiveness crept into her tone. "It's not that simple. I didn't leave. I needed space to find my own voice." "Your voice?" His eyebrows raised, incredulity lining his features. "You mean your music? When did that become more important than family?" Jessica inhaled deeply, feeling the sting of confrontation flood her veins. "It's not about choosing one over the other. I thought you would understand. Music is my way of processing everything, the pain, the joy, our memories." For a moment his eyes softened, and uncertainty flickered across his face. "I just wish you had told me instead of shutting me out. I didn't know how. I thought you'd only see it as abandoning you. I'm scared that you'll feel betrayed," she admitted, her voice cracking slightly. Silence enveloped them again, and Jessica's heart raced. The balance was shifting, the conversation transforming into something far deeper than she anticipated. She needed to share her art, to show him the lyrics she had poured her soul into, to express her perspective as a bridge. "Can I share something with you?" He nodded slowly, curiosity mingling with caution in his expression. Reaching into her satchel, Jessica pulled out her notebook and, with a hint of trepidation, opened it to a page filled with hastily scrawled lyrics. "This is part of a song I've written. It's about us, about family and finding a way back to each other." As she began to read, each word and phrase resonated with her brother, unveiling layers of vulnerability she had kept hidden. She poured her heart into the syllables, the rhythmic cadence encapsulating her fears, hopes, and dreams. In that moment, A flicker of understanding passed between them, a potential shift that could lead them toward healing or further divide. When she reached the end, both sat in stillness, absorbing the weight of what had just transpired. But as she looked up, their gazes locked. Questions lingered unspoken in the charged atmosphere. Would he finally confront his own emotional depths? Was this secret unveiling a step toward family restoration or merely a prelude to more conflict? Tension hung like a fragile thread. For Jessica, the stakes were higher than ever. This performance could either foster reconciliation or unearth deeper wounds that might never heal. What would her brother's response reveal? And would this pivotal moment ignite a new path for their relationship or lead to yet another painful fracture? Jessica held her breath, awaiting his answer, the air thick with unvoiced uncertainties. Her brother's gaze faltered, a flicker of realization breaking through the guarded facade he had maintained. Jessica held her breath as she searched his expression for a sign, any sign, of how he would react to the lines of her heart laid bare before him. He finally began, trailing off as if the words had tangled in his throat. Jessica watched the wheels turn in his mind, the conflict evident in the lines on his forehead. This was the moment they had both been waiting for, the hinge that could either swing open the door to reconciliation or slam it shut for good. "I never knew you felt that way." His voice was strained, almost hollow. "You took off with no explanation, Jess. We were left picking up the pieces. I thought you didn't care anymore." The disappointment rolled off him, a palpable thing that struck Jessica in the gut. "I was trying to care for myself," she countered, her determination bolstering her voice. "I thought that would ultimately be the best way to care for you too, to figure out who I was away from all the chaos of our family." The words slipped from her lips with a mix of desperation and conviction. For a moment, they both fell silent, the hum of the cafe and the hustle of surrounding patrons becoming a distant backdrop to their confrontation. Jessica's heart raced as she weighed her next words. She had exposed the essence of her being, but it could just as easily lead to rejection as it could to understanding. "Do you really think I didn't want to support you?" he finally spoke, voicing the raw undertones of hurt. "You were my sister. I always cared, but you just vanished. I was drowning, and music became my lifeline. I thought if I pulled away, I could save myself and regroup. I didn't anticipate that it would create this rift between us," she confessed, her fingers twitching nervously around the notebook. "What if this is just a phase?" he questioned, skepticism bubbling to the surface. "What if you're still lost and all this songwriting and imagery doesn't change anything?" The air between them crackled with tension, Jessica feeling her defenses rise instinctively. "It's not a phase. It's how I've learned to navigate my reality. Don't you see? Writing these songs made me confront my fears, my childhood, our childhood. I'm afraid of the pain, but not talking about it doesn't keep it away. It festers." His expression shifted, as if a crack had appeared in his rigid demeanor. Jessica caught the quick flare of emotion in his eyes. Was it confusion? Anger? Was it guilt? "I just want us to be close again," he said, each word carrying the weight of unacknowledged longing. "I want to understand, but it's hard when I think you might never come back." The blend of vulnerability in his admission sparked something within her. "I am here now. I want to rebuild this connection with you," Jessica asserted, moving forward in her seat, as if the physical act could bridge their emotional divide. In that moment, she could sense the transition occurring within him. Each syllable she had sung from her heart was coaxing him toward a deeper understanding of himself, too. Their shared history, with all its tangled threads, was the foundation they could rebuild upon. But all that depended on his willingness to embrace that exposed vulnerability. Jessica took a deep breath and leaned in closer, her voice softening. "Would you listen to one more song? If it resonates with you, Maybe you could come to the next open mic I perform at." He considered her, a flicker of hope igniting in his expression. "You want me there?" "I want you by my side. After all the years apart, it's time to face our past together." His eyes flickered, uncertainty still clouding his gaze, but it was a shift, a gentle opening that hadn't existed just minutes before. As she took out her notebook once more, heart pounding with both fear and excitement, Jessica sensed this was a tipping point, one that could redefine their relationship. But was her brother truly ready to confront his own complexities, to embrace the possibility of healing together? She began to strum a few chords, the familiar melody cascading into the tender silence, her heart racing as the words flowed from her lips. But just as the intensity of their moment began to blossom, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. A message blinked onto the screen, a stark reminder of the world outside this fragile space they were creating. It was an invitation for a golden opportunity, one that could change everything for her. As the last note lingered in the air, Jessica paused, torn between two divergent paths that lay before her, the vital exploration of her family and the ambition clamoring to launch her music career. The spectre of choice loomed ominously, ready to shape her future in ways she hadn't anticipated. Could she strike a balance that honored both her budding career and her family? And what revelation awaited her brother once he had truly faced the emotional battle they were dancing around? Jessica's heart raced again, torn, as she prepared to respond to the message, acutely aware of the decisions she needed to make. The moment felt poised on the edge of transformation, and yet uncertainty swirled like autumn leaves caught in the wind. Despite the tender moment that had just transpired, the buzzing of Jessica's phone shattered the delicate atmosphere. Her fingers trembled as she glanced at the notification, the excitement of the opportunity feeling like a jarring contrast to the fragile reconnection with her brother. It was an open invitation from a renowned music producer who had heard a demo of her latest song. It was a chance for her to step into the spotlight, to take her career to heights she had only dared to dream about. But it meant leaving her brother behind at a crucial moment. The weight of the decision pressed heavily upon her. Should she dive headfirst into this golden opportunity that could define her future in the music industry, or should she prioritize rebuilding the bridge between their estranged lives? The open mic night, after all, was a chance not just to perform, but to share a significant part of herself, a symbolic gesture toward healing and reconciliation. Feeling torn, Jessica's heart felt as if it could burst. Her mind raced over the implications of either path. If she chose the producer, would her brother think she was abandoning him once more? Yet, if she devoted herself to mending their relationship, would she be sacrificing her own personal and professional growth? For so long, she had felt disconnected, as though she had been living another person's life, merely floating through each moment. Crafting music had offered her clarity, a vision to reclaim her agency. Her brother's eyes searched hers, imploring for answers, reassurance that they could heal together. His presence was a reminder of the weight of their shared history, a reminder of everything that had fallen apart, everything she so desperately wished to rebuild. A thought flitted through her mind. This opportunity was not merely a distraction from their fragile moment. It could serve as a rallying point, demonstrating the value of pursuing passions while also embracing one's roots. Maybe, she hesitated, a new determination bubbling beneath her uncertainty. What if I tell you about this opportunity first? It might help you see how serious I am about both my music and us. His expression shifted from uncertainty to curiosity, eager yet cautious, a doorway to understanding opening gradually. Yeah? What is it? Jessica took a deep breath, steeling herself for the revelation. There's a producer who wants to hear more of my music. It's that big of a deal. His brows furrowed, a mix of pride and worry flickering across his face. And you're considering going for it? I feel like it's what I've been working toward, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper, but I won't choose that over you. I feel like I finally have the chance to express my truth on a larger scale. His silence felt heavy, the tension of their past weighing down the moment. It was palpable, like a string pulled taut, ready to either snap or strum in harmony. I don't want to be the one who holds you back, he said finally, his voice steady, though his eyes betrayed the conflict within. But you've got to promise me that whatever happens, we're in this together. We keep working on us. Tears pricked the corners of Jessica's eyes, the gravity of his words settling into her heart. I promise, she replied, her voice firm yet soft, embodying the duality of their situation. Still, in that profound exchange, she understood that her music and family could coexist. They could balance ambition with deep-rooted connections, interweaving her professional growth with the desire to revive their familial bonds. The promise energizing her spirit, she picked up her guitar once more. Let's go back for just a moment. I want to play for you. Remember that last song? It can mean something new now. But as she strummed the first chords, anticipation turned into a palpable tension, with her brother aware that this was more than just a song. It was a promise to embrace both her journey and their shared past. Then, just as she felt the music wrapping around them, the barista approached with an urgent expression, interrupting the sanctuary they had begun to create. "Excuse me, miss, but there's someone here to see you. They say it's important." The sudden intrusion felt like the emotional barrier they had been teetering on began to crack. Jessica's heart sank. Who could it be? And what did they want? With her brother's worried gaze upon her and uncertainty flooding back in waves, she shifted her focus back to the situation, the thrilling promise of her burgeoning career clashing with the weight of family ties. As the barista gestured toward the entrance, she prepared herself for whatever news awaited her. Was this the opportunity she had longed for, or more complications threatening to unravel the fragile bond they had just begun to mend? The air felt charged, steeped in the tension of choices looming ahead. What awaited her at the door could eclipse everything, shattering the delicate moment she had fought to achieve. Would she be ready for what came next? Jessica hesitated at the barista's words, her heart thumping loudly in her chest. The prospect of diving into whatever lay beyond the entrance felt both thrilling and terrifying. This moment could define not just her future in music, but how she interacted with her brother, setting the stage for the healing they so desperately needed. "Do you want me to wait?" her brother asked, uncertainty etched across his features. "No, I can handle this," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Taking another deep breath, she stood and smoothed her hair behind her ears. The weight of the decision loomed large, whether to place her aspirations before familial ties, or to treat this as part of the fragile bridge she was attempting to build. As she walked toward the door, the atmosphere within the cafe shifted. The chatter of conversation faded into a distant hum, and her senses sharpened, every sound tinged with the electric buzz of potential. She stepped outside and was met by a striking figure, an older woman with a confident stance and an air of authority about her. "Jessica, right?" the woman asked, her voice resonating with warmth and command. "Yes," Jessica replied, her mind racing. "What can I do for you?" "I'm Melinda Green," the woman said, extending a hand. "I'm a producer for Dusk Music, and I've been following your work. Your demo, it struck a chord with me." Jessica's heart soared at the name, the recognition validating every sleepless night spent crafting melodies and lyrics. Suddenly, the script she had rehearsed in her mind, the one where she explained her situation to her brother, seemed absurd. Here stood a woman who believed in her talent. "I'd like to discuss your music further, the potential collaboration," Melinda continued, her eyes glinting with excitement. But it's more than just about making a record. I sense something deeper in your art. You have a story that could resonate, and I want to help you share it." Jessica's pulse raced. This was the moment she had envisioned for so long, yet the backdrop of her brother's earlier vulnerability weighed heavily on her thoughts. "I appreciate the opportunity, truly, but I'm in the middle of a personal situation," she stammered, glancing back at the cafe where her brother waited anxiously. Melinda tilted her head, curiosity piqued. "I understand family ties can be complicated, but you should know that excellence often involves hard choices. If you can't follow your path, how will you inspire others?" Jessica's stomach twisted at the ultimatum veiled within those words. She wasn't just being asked to choose between family and ambition, she was being confronted with a deeper truth about herself. Was she willing to risk everything? Her relationship with her brother and the fragile healing they had initiated for the chance to embrace her dream. "Take your time," Melinda said, as if sensing the storm raging within. "This isn't just about music, it's about your life. I believe success blooms from authenticity." The weight of those words followed Jessica as she turned back toward her brother, who watched her with questioning eyes. Could she explain this opportunity without shattering the tentative trust they were rebuilding? Her resolve began to fray. "Jessica," he called softly, concern framing his features. She started, the path ahead swirling with complexities. What if her ambitions were not in opposition to her familial ties, but a means of enriching them? What would it take for her to live in both worlds without sacrificing either? Resolving her thoughts became her next challenge. She had to explore the depths of her passions, but could she do so while honoring her brother's vulnerability? Torn between ambition and loyalty, she knew the hour had come for a decision, one capable of redefining both her career and family dynamics. Without releasing the anchor of her brother's gaze, Jessica realized that the time had come to face the truth. And in her heart, she felt a powerful notion coalesce. This journey could weave their stories together rather than tear them apart. But first, she had to sort through the emotions cascading in waves, joy, fear, a blossoming determination to see where they would lead her next. With the choice echoing in her mind, she recognized that clarity would require her to dive deeper into her personal journey. "Can you give me a moment?" she asked Melinda, her voice steadied by emerging resolve. As she turned back toward her brother, she knew that every decision they faced would ripple in unexpected ways. They were co-authoring a narrative, one neither of them fully understood. But one thing was certain. Whatever lay ahead would demand authenticity, courage, and perhaps the hardest lesson of all, trust. Would she confront her brother about the needs of their relationship? And could she bring her dreams to life without leaving him behind? The stakes had never felt higher. Jessica stood before her brother, his expression a mixture of concern and expectancy. She had hoped for a moment of clarity, a revelation that would illuminate her next steps. But now she felt like a ship adrift in an endless sea of uncertainty. "Jess, what's going on?" he asked again, an urgency creeping into his tone. "You look pale." The tension that crackled in the air was nearly palpable. She glanced back at Melinda, who stood observing with an encouraging nod, silently urging Jessica to embrace this moment, not just for herself, but for them both. The weight of the potential opportunity was intoxicating yet oppressive. "I can't just leave things with you like this," she stammered, almost pleading. "You matter, and it's not that easy. What if I pursue this and it goes nowhere? I can't risk hurting us again." Her brother's brow furrowed. "I get that, I really do. But I also see you struggling to hold back your dreams. You can't keep sacrificing your happiness for me. I don't want you to do that." The sincerity in his voice hit her hard. He was offering her the freedom to choose, but could she really abandon the fragile connection they were working to restore? In that moment, she felt a pang of guilt wash over her. knowing that this could be the path to not only her dreams, but to a greater harmony in their relationship. "I've always put my dream on the back burner," she admitted, her voice trembling as vulnerability seeped through the cracks of her previously steadfast facade. "We've both gone through so much. But if I don't take this chance now, will I ever forgive myself?" A flicker of understanding crossed her brother's face. "You're not just choosing music, Jess. You're choosing yourself. That's something you can't overlook. If anything, it feels right to have you explore this part of yourself. I know how much it means to you." Tears stung Jessica's eyes, and she swallowed hard, wrestling with the complexity of love and duty. She had spent so long putting everyone else's needs before her own that the idea of prioritizing her dreams felt like stepping into the unknown, an act of faith that terrified her. "All right," she said, her voice steadier now. "I'll talk to Melinda, but I don't want to lose what we're rebuilding, and I need to make sure that you're okay with this. You're the most important thing to me." The corners of his mouth turned up slightly, but the unquenchable worry never left his eyes. "I'll always be here for you. We'll navigate this together." Jessica turned to Melinda, who had been silently observing their conversation, an encouraging smile on her face. "I'm ready to dive into this," Jessica said, feeling an unfamiliar rush of confidence. "I want to explore my music and my story." "Excellent," Melinda replied, her eyes sparking with excitement. "Let's make some magic happen." The warmth that flooded through Jessica was unlike anything she had ever felt before. Still, a lingering doubt hung in the air. What if this partnership with Melinda didn't bring the fame she longed for? What if it deepened the rift between her and her brother, who had allowed her the space to be herself? With every intention of transforming doubt into motivation, Jessica recognized the journey ahead would not be easy. She would need to craft her songs while actively listening to what her brother was going through. Could she find a balance that allowed them both to heal and grow? The personal stakes had transformed from abstract concepts into tangible truths, pressing her forward into uncharted waters. As the cold New York air swallowed them whole, Jessica's mind raced with possibilities. Could this collaboration unlock not just her dreams, but also redefine what it meant to be a sister and an artist? With her brother by her side and the weight of her decision heavy upon her heart, Jessica took her first brave step into the unknown. Confidence surged within her as a new melody formed in her mind, a reflection of this intricate dance between her passion and her family. But as the door creaked open to Melinda's world, Jessica realized another storm brewed within her. Would her journey inspire healing, or would it complicate their already fragile bond? This new chapter would require every ounce of her resolve. The echoes of her dreams swirled around her, and in that moment she understood. Transformation awaited, but so too would challenges she had yet to confront. Would she emerge stronger, or would the cost of ambition tear their fragile bond apart? The questions loomed large, and the next step awaited. Jessica stood at the crossroads of her life, each heartbeat a reminder of the choices she'd made and the ones still looming. The exhilarating invitation from Melinda resonated like a bell tolling a new era, while the profound conversation with her brother echoed intensely in her ears. Each possibility held tremendous weight, and at that moment the clarity she desperately sought began to surface. Instead of feeling trapped between her ambitions and family obligations, she realized they were intrinsically linked. The choice before her was not a dichotomy, but an avenue for healing, both personally and with her brother. With a steadying breath, she embraced the realization that stepping into the spotlight was not an act of abandonment. Rather, it could act as a beacon that illuminated their way back to each other. "Let's go inside and finish what we started," Jessica said, emboldened by the growing fire of her aspirations. I want to share my music with you, and I want to figure this out together." The resolve in her voice spoke not only of her dreams, but also of a commitment to bridge the chasm that had divided them for too long. Her brother's eyes lit up, the shadows of worry slowly receding. "Can we start over? I want to understand your desires, Jess, just as you want to understand my struggles." For the first time, they were on the same page, ready to listen and open their hearts to one another. As they both entered the cafe, Jessica's mind bubbled with melodies yet to be penned, lyrics blossoming within her soul. She needed to encapsulate the journey she had traversed, a mix of dreams and familial love. Setting her guitar on the wooden table, she could feel the energy shift, anticipation mingling with a sense of profound serenity. Jessica strummed a few chords and began to sing, weaving a song that expressed her fears, her hopes, and the intricate layers of their relationship. Words flowed, recounting stories of struggle, love, and resilience. As she sang, their shared history unfurled in harmony, each note binding them closer, stitching together the tattered edges of their connection. When the song drew to a close, silence enveloped them, punctuated by the distant clinking of cups around them. Her brother's expression mirrored the emotional upheaval they'd both experienced. He leaned forward, eyes glistening. "I never understood how deeply this affected you. I'm sorry for not being more sensitive to your struggles." The sincerity nestled within those words ignited a warmth within Jessica. "And I'm sorry I turned away when you needed me most." This journey isn't just about music or fame. It's about rewriting our narrative together. Understanding washed over them, creating room for vulnerability. They were no longer siblings caught in a web of blame. They were fellow travelers working together to forge a new path forward. Jessica could now focus on her music without it feeling like a betrayal. Instead, it was an expansion of their story. That night, enveloped in a blanket of camaraderie, Jessica texted Melinda back. She would seize the opportunity, would dive into her music career with the full knowledge that her family stood solidly behind her, reinforcing her courage in both undertakings. Days passed as she stepped further into her newfound role as an artist. The gala approached, filled with glittering prospects, and she spent those weeks honing her craft and refining her voice, a voice that now held genuine power and authenticity. Her brother cheered her on by attending rehearsals, soon becoming her best support system. Their shared laughter nestled in the air, illustrating the undeniable bond that had transformed through grudges forged in silence. The night under the spotlight arrived, and Jessica took a deep breath, stepping onto the stage with confidence radiating from her core. The applause she once longed for echoed as she sang her heart out, offering not just her music, but her sincerity, weaving her family's tapestry of healing into every note. When the final notes trailed off into silence, she felt complete, validated not just by the applause, but by the journey taken with her brother at her side. They had traversed valleys of misunderstandings and fears, emerging victorious together. As she stepped off the stage, her brother enveloped her in a bear hug, the warmth enveloping her like a protective shield. "You did it, Jess. That was incredible." His voice was full of awe and admiration, paving the way for hers to shine. With her heart full and her voice steady, she realized she had not only achieved personal growth, but had cultivated a relationship that no longer resided in shadows. They were each other's foundations, two pillars beneath a spectacular archway of dreams and aspirations. The personal transformations they had undergone fortified their bond, allowing each to stand on their ground with acceptance, pride, and love. Jessica knew, without doubt, this was just the beginning. In a decisive spark of enthusiasm, she recorded the song that had encapsulated their journey. It would be the first of an album chronicling their shared story of resilience. The world would hear her, hear their tale. It was time the world understood that chasing dreams could occur hand in hand with reclaiming family. Jessica felt more accomplished than she'd ever dreamed possible. They had become the emerging symphony in her life. A melody that once seemed unreachable was now harmoniously playing between them. Now was the time for others to witness this transformation. Now was the moment to share their story. You need to subscribe now to dive deeper into these exclusive emotional journeys. Leave a like now to amplify Jessica's tale and support this channel's mission of empowerment. Comment below how you've overcome your struggles and what family means to you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to be inspired by the power of dreams and the bonds of family. Don't wait even one more second to share.